everybody! Welcome to my channel, Tiff Anime Reviews. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for joining me once again. And if you are a new viewer, thanks so much for checking this channel out. I really do appreciate it, and if you do like it, make sure to like and subscribe. But in general, just thank you for checking out this video. It does mean a lot to me. I did try to dress appropriately-ish for the anime we're talking about today. It kind of matches. It doesn't really, but it was the best thing I had that was similar-ish to the outfits they wear in this anime. And this is supposed to be a sword. It's a pen. But I don't have a sword, so pen it is. But before we go ahead and get into this anime review, I do want to explain for you newcomers how this channel works. So I have compiled a giant list of 800 plus anime to watch in my lifetime. The only requirements that I had while making this list was that they must be ranked 7 and above. I was able to aggregate this through a site I found that generates random anime, and you can set your preferences to whatever you'd like. So my only preference was 7 and above as a score, because I'm not purposefully trying to watch shows that I won't like. I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna like 800 plus anime that I've seen, but I'm hoping that at least the majority I end up really liking and that I find some nice surprises along the way. All of these anime are numbered, and then I hit a random number generator, and whichever number it lands on is the next anime that I have to watch to its completion and review. And the next anime that I landed on is the one we're talking about today, which is... How to get my pen. Akame ga Kill! Awesome sword, right? So yes, the anime we are talking about today is Akame ga Kill. And the outfit the main girl wears is kind of similar in style-ish to this. Not really, but like I said, it was the closest I could come up with, so there you go. Now, I will let you know this is a little bit of a special review because I watched this anime and will full on admit I loved this anime, but really wanted to see what was amazing in the manga because everyone says the manga is way better than the anime for this one in particular. So this is actually an anime and a manga review, because I watched the anime and also read the manga to its completion. Now, I'm not going to be doing this for every single anime. There's some that will probably entice me enough to want to read the source material that it's based off of, but don't expect this for every single one. But this one was one of those cases where I loved what the anime did, and I really wanted to read the manga to see what it was all about. Once we get into the spoilery section, it will be a big compare and contrast type of review because I want to compare what happened in the anime versus the manga. So just giving you a heads up in case some of you are wanting to read the manga and haven't yet, or maybe vice versa. It's gonna kind of spoil you for both once we get into the spoilery section. Now, for those of you who don't know what Akame ga Kill is about, it follows a character named Tatsumi who lives in a small, pretty poor village. So him and a couple of his friends decide that they want to go to the capital and make a name for themselves in order to send funds back to the village. That way their village can thrive and not be in poverty anymore. So Tatsumi does get separated from his friends, but ends up making his way to the capital and is very excited to start his adventure. But then he finds out that the capital is not all as it seems. There's very much a big darkness lurking underneath that. So through a series of events, he ends up joining an assassin group called Night Raid, which their whole purpose is to fight injustice in the capital. They fight using something called an Imperial Arm. That's what it's called in the anime. It's called something different in the manga, but we'll go with Imperial Arms for this review. But these Imperial Arms are weapons that have special abilities. The assassins in Night Raid use these arms to combat against the evils in the capital. And that's all I'm going to tell you plot-wise, so if you want to find out the rest of the plot and how stuff unfolds, go read the manga or go watch the anime, alright? But that's it on the plot description for you, okay? That's it. So I will say, going into watching this anime, I was a little bit hesitant on it just because I hadn't always really heard the best things about it. I didn't know what it was about, but I knew it didn't necessarily have the best reputation. You either love it or hate it. I ended up absolutely loving it, and I don't know if I'm in the minority for that. I probably am, but I really did. So much so, it is what made me want to read the manga because everyone was saying how the manga is so much better. And I will tell you, the manga is so much better. That's not a lie. The manga does a much better job of pacing, especially towards the end, but I still really loved the anime. So I'm gonna kind of give a weird recommendation for you people who haven't seen this at all. I, again, went into the anime blind, not knowing anything, had not read the manga, nothing. And I think because of that, for me, it ended up making me really love the anime. Now, I'm pretty sure there are people out there who've watched just the anime and were not impressed, and that's fine. But I personally recommend, if you're gonna do both, watching the anime and reading the manga, watch the anime first. If you read the manga first before the anime, you will probably be disappointed by the anime. The beginning part of it is pretty accurate, but the second half of the manga is completely different from the anime. For me, that ended up enhancing my experience totally, because the anime didn't lose its quality and how much I got attached to it, but when I read the manga and saw how much better it was, it felt like everything I wanted that I didn't get in the anime, and that felt really, really nice. If you're just looking for the best version of the story and like you're gonna do one or the other or whatever it may be, then just read the manga. The manga is the absolute best version of the story. But the anime is still really, really fun to me. And I get it gets a lot of flack, and I can see why after reading the manga, but I personally think it still holds up really well by itself. And I'm really, really happy I watched that anime. It's such a good surprise. Now, is the story overall perfectly executed 100%? No, it's not. But it's super fun. The characters are super enjoyable. Go watch it and go read it and let me know what you think. Maybe you think I'm crazy. Maybe you're like, Tiffany, there's so much better out there. And you know what? There are better stories, but this one is fun. And I liked the message and the morals that it was saying and what it was trying to do. I really appreciated it. As for my ratings, I would give the anime probably like a 7.5, manga a solid 8. So that's pretty good. I would have said the anime was at a solid 8, but then I read the manga, so I was like, yeah, the manga gets the solid 8. But that's all I have for you, non-spoilery peeps. So go watch the anime, go read the manga, whatever you want to do. Grab your pen sword, and go watch Akame ga Kill. And then come back here and let me know if you disagree with me, agree with me full-heartedly, whatever it may be. Just go watch it and experience the story, because I think this is a story that is definitely worth experiencing. Bye, non-spoilery people. Goodbye! Spoilery time. Let's get into it. As I mentioned, I watched the anime first and then decided to jump in the manga. A big reason why is because even when I was watching the anime, the beginning parts felt very rushed to me. And I was looking forward to potentially having the manga kind of slow stuff down, especially in regards to Tatsumi's introduction to the capital. Because that whole section, it felt very rushed for me in the anime. You learn about his friends, you don't really get to see them until their gruesome death. And I felt bad because I felt like this was supposed to be a very strong moment, and it felt a little bit weakened because of the fact it was very rushed and there wasn't really too much we knew about Tatsumi at the time. So when I jumped into the manga, I was hoping there would be a little bit more to it. At least to me, the anime actually, beginning part of it stayed pretty accurate. The pace of the beginning part where Tatsumi learns about the capital, it still felt the same to me in the manga. I think the main purpose was to awaken Tatsumi to what the capital really is. But I definitely wanted to, I think, feel a little bit more of an emotional punch right off the bat, and I didn't fully get that. Now, I will say what's nice in the manga is that you do feel more of the repercussions of him losing his friends than I feel like you do in the anime. I feel like I see his friends keep popping up more consistently in the manga to remind you that this is why he joined Night Raid, because of what happened to his friends. Where in the anime, I think they're kind of mentioned one more time, where he thinks maybe there will be an Imperial arm that can bring people back to life. But it felt a little bit out of place in the anime because he hadn't really mentioned his friends too much. Where in the manga, I felt it a little bit more because you saw him dreaming about them and you saw him reminiscing a little bit here and there, so it connected better. I would say anime-wise, all the way through Bulat's death felt pretty rushed to me. Now, I will say the anime did a great job at shocking me. They set up this whole premise with the Imperial arms. And by the way, I love the Imperial arms. I love how it makes each fighter unique and how they interact with their weapon. Lubok is still my favorite. I loved the craftiness that he had to do. But what they set up with the Imperial arms, which I also love, is that if two Imperial arm users fight against each other, one of them's gonna have to die and the other will survive. And that put a certain emphasis on fights and heightened the intensity, because if you were facing an Imperial user, you knew one of them was going to die. But Shield's death was a big shock for me in the anime. I expected when they set up that premise that people were going to probably die. If all of them had survived, when you set up a premise that allows you to give emotional punches with killing characters, I would have been like, why? So I knew it was going to happen, but I did not expect it to happen so early on. But what the anime kind of did, which ruined the shock value of it a little bit. They're very gratuitous with killing later on, let's be real. But they kind of created this pattern that was very obvious. For example, with Shield, we started learning about her and her backstory, and then literally the next episode she's dead. And the same thing happened with Bulat. We started learning about him and his backstory. He ends up having to fight his mentor, and then he dies. So every time someone's backstory was revealed, I expected them to die, because they would literally wait until the episode before to give you their backstory. So then you just expect them to die. It was kind of a little bit annoying for me, because I wanted to be surprised when someone died and feel that emotional punch. So for the anime, Shield's death and Bulat's death, Bulat's was definitely sadder, but it didn't have the strong emotional impact I wanted it to have. The manga, it still kind of felt a little bit rushed, but I actually did feel that. When Shield dies and you see her looking and how she's saying how she finally feels like she's useful, that made me tear up and that hurt, and I wanted Shield to survive. Bulat's was also very strong, but I feel like what they did a really great job for in the manga was how his death affected Tatsumi, because Tatsumi takes over his suit, and the anime didn't have enough time, I think, to really show how Tatsumi is trying to use the suit and trying to live up to Bulat, where in the manga you see that constantly. So I really liked that in the manga, is that you felt the repercussions and ramifications more of people dying. But one thing that I did feel like was really balanced well in regards to the deaths, because I know the anime got a lot of flack, especially towards the end, where a lot of characters just die, and it seems gratuitous at that point, because it's just like you're killing people left and right. And we'll get more to the ending and how I actually felt about it a little bit later on, but I just wanted to say that one thing I did like and appreciate is that yes, some of the deaths felt very quick. The way I had personally interpreted it is, at the end of the day, they're fighting a war. They're trying to start a war, so they don't really have time to sit there and think about all of these memories with them and reminisce too much. They don't have time to sit and dilly-dally. They have to go, 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 go. So while it's sad when people pass, they have to keep going. They're trying to change how society is, and as much as it saddens them to see their comrades fall, they can't stop and wallow in that. They have to keep pushing forward in order to achieve what their comrades were also trying to achieve. So I actually really liked that balance, and I know it can be a little bit off-putting because it seems like they're just kind of happy already, but I feel like the manga does it better, where you do see that they are remembered and they aren't forgotten about. Now I am going to skip a little bit because I really want to talk about the second half of the manga and anime versus the first half, because the first half of both are pretty aligned. There's not really much difference. All the way through, I want to say, Chelsea's death, it's pretty accurate. The second half is where stuff changes. Even though I read the manga and agree that the manga did stuff way better, it didn't deter my love for the anime and my experience going through that anime and that story. So first, let's talk about Mine and Tatsumi. Yes, you know where I'm going with this. You don't know how happy I was in the manga when you actually saw them be a couple. You don't know how happy I was in the anime when I saw that it was Mine and Tatsumi who were probably going to get together. Why? Because of course, it's called Akame ga Kill. Tatsumi and Akame kind of have a little bit of a bond at the beginning, so my instinct thought, okay, him and Akame are probably gonna bond and get together at some point, blah, 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 blah. So when I found out it was Mine, it felt different and really cool, and I really liked that, and it was a little bit unexpected, but in a really great way. But I was sad because we find out in the anime that she has feelings for him, but then she dies. She goes to save him, and then she dies. And I knew it was coming because there's no way she is gonna survive that, but I really wanted her to. I wanted their relationship to actually be a thing. So look at my surprise when I read the manga and found out they actually got to be a couple. Like, they kiss. They do more than kiss. They're a couple. And it makes that whole battle sequence where Mine goes to save him that much more intense, because now they're a couple. So you understand. She's saying, Esther, you are not getting my man. I'm gonna get him back. So she goes with the other peeps to go and save him. And I was just like, yes, go Mine. But I was also sad because I thought she was going to die. And then what do you know? The manga surprises me again because Mine survives. She's in a coma. She is in a coma for the rest of the manga. So you don't really know if she's gonna survive or not. But she was alive. She can come back from a coma. I loved Mine as a character, and I was so happy that her and Tatsumi, even though he's like a weird dragon now, are able to be together. That's all I wanted, and I got it. The manga gave me that after me thinking for the anime that would never happen. Now let's go back real quick to that fight that I just mentioned where Mine goes to save Tatsumi. If for this fight alone, I want a Brotherhood remake of Akame ga Kill. Even though I do love the anime for what it did, this fight in the manga wasn't just good, it was amazing. You have Mine trying to save Tatsumi, but then you have S death. And let me tell you, I loved the twist of S death falling in love with Tatsumi, even though she is crazy. It was funny and you knew he wasn't gonna fall for her, but it also set up you two are gonna battle each other. I didn't know at first that maybe he was going to grow to care about her in some regard, so it would hurt him, but ended up going the direction of him going, no, that girl is just crazy. And this battle was amazing in the manga, and I wanted this to happen in the anime so bad after reading it. You see them fighting each other, you see Estet smiling through it. There's so much force behind every movement because Tatsumi has to use everything he has, and Estet's like, come and get me, Tatsumi, and she's loving it, and it was amazing. This battle was epic, and I really want to see it animated properly. That's my favorite battle because of them going at it and her smiling and reveling in it. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. If you've read the manga, you know what I mean. Now, another battle sequence though that was a lot better in the manga than it was in the anime was in regards to the Way of Peace. There's this whole section where the Night Raid have to infiltrate the Way of Peace and try to kill a big bad dude within the Way of Peace that's trying to corrupt it. In the anime, I was pretty confused by it because it was, again, pretty rushed. I didn't really learn much about the Way of Peace and didn't really understand its impact. And in the manga, that's done completely different. The battle between Susanoo and Estet in there was absolutely amazing. And I again want that one reanimated. All of Estet's amazing battles weren't done appropriately in the anime. If there's one gripe I have, it's really that, is that a couple of the big battle sequences that could have been amazing fall flat in the anime, especially after you read what happens in the manga. This whole Way of Peace infiltration is so drawn out in the manga. You have Run fighting Akame in them, you have Estet and Susanoo going at it, just so much is happening, and none of that is in the anime. But it made the impact greater in the manga for me seeing it, and then I realized why Way of Peace was so important because they're helping with the revolution, and in the anime, just because of the fact that this wasn't such a big part of it, I kind of lost and forgot why is Way of Peace and who is this person, you know? Where at least in the manga, I understood it. The church and this group or this cult basically would be able to help them out, but they have to get rid of the people who are working for the empire within it. Now, out of all of the characters though, there are two characters that had a great disservice in the anime. That is Run and Sierra. And it's because both of their character development really takes place within the same arc, the Wild Hunt arc, which was cut. And that makes me sad. In the anime, I didn't understand Run. It was very obvious that he was supposed to be a character that was pretty smart and had ulterior motives with being in Estet's group, but it's never really fully explained in the anime, so he just seems kind of pointless by the end. You do have one battle with him, but it doesn't feel very strong because you're like, I don't really know who this dude is or why he was here in the first place. In the manga, the Wild Hunt arc in general is a lot darker than the rest of the manga. It's at least one of the darker parts of it. And it's definitely one I wish I could see animated because it just gives so much backstory into certain characters that felt pretty one and done in the anime. Run was a teacher and his kids got killed horribly. Like very, 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 very dark. I don't have to tell you exactly what happened because I don't want to describe it in detail. What ends up happening is Run is connected to Sierra. Sierra is the guy who was the son of the prime minister who's influencing the emperor, and Sierra made no sense to me in the anime either because it felt like he was pointless. He tries to kill someone and then he dies. In this, he has a whole crew that he is controlling and that is wreaking havoc on the capital. And one of those people is a clown, and this clown is the one who happens to kill all of Run's students. So Run, even though he's working for the Empire, and Sierra is also technically working for the Empire, he is very much against this and he wants his revenge. And what happens in the manga? He doesn't survive in the manga. Oh no, he dies getting his revenge on the clown dude. And what's even more twisted is Kurome, Akame's little sister, uses her imperial arm to make him one of her puppets, so that way he doesn't actually die. And all of that is not in the anime. Like, what the heck? But then it also gives you stuff about Sayura, because now he has actually more of a role within the capital. Like, he doesn't just feel like a dumb character who tried to do something and then absolutely failed. He actually did wreak havoc on the capital and made it 10 times worse than it already was. It shows you how bad this dude is, and it makes you angrier when everything happens with Lubok and Sayura. So I was a little bit upset, no, a lot upset, that this arc was completely cut out, because that arc was so imperative. Run's whole arc, character development arc, is so much better. And that part is sad that it's not in the anime. I would have loved that part, and I liked that that went darker than, again, like a lot of the manga did. That's the darkest I feel like it really gets to, besides like one short story, which was very traumatizing, about 3 girls who go to the capital. If you've read it, you know what I mean. Now, I will say the only battle that I wasn't really too sure, and I actually kind of made like the anime one a little bit better, but that's because I like darker stories, so that's why, happened to be between Akame and her sister Kurome. You're building up this epic battle between the two of them because they're really the 2 main figureheads of the story. 2 kids that were corrupted by the capital. One got out of it, one is still stuck within it. You see them come to a head. Now in the anime, it does get a little weird. I didn't like that they're in the middle of the battle and then all of a sudden they have to fight this giant thing. That made no sense to me. But it does come to a death blow between the 2, and Kurome ends up passing on. But it's this very powerful moment in the sense that Akame is releasing Kurome from her pain. And again, the only part I didn't like in it was them fighting a random giant creature that was there, but it also gave them one more moment as a sister duo, so it does add a little bit of impact in it. In the manga, Wave saves Kurome. He intervenes, and him and Kurome end up going off and trying to live a life together and be a couple. So this is where it got a little bit like, I don't know. I'm so twisted, aren't I? That I'm like, I prefer when Kurome dies. Her and Wave's relationship, it didn't build up to a romance relationship for me. It felt more kind of like brother and sister. So them being a couple felt weird. And I liked their characters, so I liked that they survived, but I just liked the execution in the anime better because it just made the story of Akame and Kurome that much more tragic. And I think that's what I expected, even outside of the anime. If I had not watched the anime and read the manga, I would expect that this was a battle to the death between the 2 sisters and one of them was going to die. It felt a little underwhelming in the manga for me. Now this final part, it's really going into the final sequences, but there are some battles that both were good to me. The anime did a good job and the manga did a good job. Let's talk about Lubok first. Lubok, he's one of my faves. He may be my favorite character. I loved the story of him following the agenda and wanting her love. I loved how crafty he was when he fought. He was just so much fun. And I was really, really sad in the anime when he died. But the way he went out was epic for what the anime was doing. You have him fight Sayura. Sayura puts him in this weird dimension. Lubok is able to combat it and take Sayura down with him. So yes, Lubok dies and is impaled right in front of Tatsumi. Just the fact that this dude was like, if I'm gonna die, you're going with me. And he was able to bring him down. Epic, and it made me really sad that Lubok was dead, but I was like, that is how you go out. You take out the villain with you. In the manga, Lubok's death is very different, but it is still very painful. I want to say the manga made it more painful because it tricks you. I saw that characters were surviving that hadn't survived in the anime, so I was really hoping Lubok was one of those characters. He gets kidnapped, he gets tortured, you feel for him, and then he breaks out, and he kills Sayura in the process. Yes, kill Sayura in the place that he was torturing you. He gets Sayura's teleportation thing. He's about to go and teleport, but then he gets teleported within the middle of like the stadium, and then he ends up getting caught and dying. And it was so sad, and I remember tearing up because you see him thinking of an agenda and if he did enough, and I'm getting sad thinking about it. His death was really, really sad to me in the manga. Now, the final battle sequences, everything that goes on with Tatsumi in the manga is interesting. I do like the idea of that the Imperial arms are harmful after long periods of use, like he's slowly turning into a dragon. That was a little bit weird. Like, I don't know how I fully feel that he's like a talking dragon by the end of it. But I did like that he's dealing with realizing he can only use this Imperial arm so many more times before it completely consumes him. And the final battle is coming up, and it makes you nervous every time he has to use it before that final battle. Now, I may be in a completely unpopular opinion, but Tatsumi's death in The anime was amazing to me. I didn't want him to die, but him fighting that giant imperial arms that the emperor is using and using every ounce he had left to stop it from crushing the city. Beautiful moment, especially at the end. He's holding it, his arms are stretched out, he's holding it, and then Akame comes up and he goes, "I'm sorry, I can't keep your promise," which was for him to survive. And it hit the heartstrings. He went all out, and it felt so amazing in the satisfaction I got. This is a group that is trying to make a change. The whole premise from the beginning, they tell him when he joins, we're not heroes. We kill just as they kill. The whole point isn't to survive, it's to make change. So to see him fight so hard for that, and then for him to die, it hit that home for me at that moment of, they're not going to survive. But that's not the point. They're not supposed to survive. They're not there doing this to see the fruits of their labor. They're doing this so that the next generations won't go through what they went through. And that hit really hard, seeing Tatsumi die for that cause in that way. And I know a lot of people were upset that Tatsumi died because he comes off as the main character when, let's be real, it's Akame. I really loved that ending in the anime. And I didn't mind what happened in the manga. Dragon a little bit weird, but it still had the same impact in the sense that, he's giving everything into this cause. The last battle with Esdeath was both amazing. I do like in the manga that it feels more of a joint effort. Esdeath is a force. It takes everyone to kill her. In the anime, it sets it up as Akame versus Esdeath, and they have won the final battle. In the manga, everyone has to trap her, everyone has to work together to even give Akame the slightest opening to kill her. And Esdeath is crazy. She cuts off her hand when Akame slices her. It was insane. I loved it in both. Again, I liked that Akame was the one to kill Esdeath, and it really feels like her in the anime because it's kind of her releasing the shackles from the Empire. That's how I interpreted it. But in the manga, I loved how there was all this camaraderie, and it really took everyone to get Esdeath to die. Like, I felt breathless by the end because I was like, oh my gosh, that took 3 lifetimes to kill one person. I am very happy though in the manga that they did change a little bit of Leonie's death. And again, this is actually a situation that both of them, I don't really mind. I just wish Leonie would have survived because I feel like she deserved to out of a lot of people. But in the anime, it felt very sad. You see, she's injured, she goes and makes her goodbyes, and then she goes and dies in the streets she grew up in. And again, in the anime, that really hit home for me, the morals of it all. Night Raid, they didn't do this for fame. They didn't do it to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. They did it because they know a change needed to happen and it would protect others in the future. So she dies forgotten. And it's really sad to think about in that way. But all of Night Raid isn't gonna be remembered for what they did. No one knows how much they actually did. Only they're gonna know it. So the fact that pretty much everyone dies, except for an agenda and Akame, it's really hurtful. And I was really sad that Leone goes and dies in the streets forgotten, because especially she talks about that, how she was a no-name. And that's where she ends up going back to. In the manga, it did trick me at first because you have her fighting the prime minister and she gets pushed, and then it seems like all of a sudden she's just dead. And I was a little bit upset, like, you're really gonna leave it at that? But in the manga, they did update it. In the anime, what ends up happening, she ends up just getting shot, and it feels so cheap because she basically made it. And then the prime minister just goes bam bam, and it's like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me right now? At least in the manga, I at first thought it was a worse version because, well, she got pushed off a ledge, but then you see that she was able to kind of morph into her imperial arms, similar to Tatsumi. So she ends up being able to hold on to life for a little bit longer just to complete her job of killing that prime minister. So that I liked, is that they changed it where she seemed dead already, and then she ends up not being and being able to finish it, versus she's perfectly fine and then bam bam and that's it. Overall, I really enjoyed this story. I loved the message behind it, and I loved the whole concept of Night Raid. They're doing a revolution, and most likely they're not going to be able to see what happens with the revolution and the outcome of it in that regard. They're going to fight for their cause and hope it makes a better change. To me, it was a really great story about that. Again, it's not perfect in its execution, but for me, it got its message across. And at the end of the day, the main person who survived, Kame, who was made in the capital, gets to escape and live her life. That is really all I have to say about this anime slash manga. If you stayed all the way through and you haven't read it or watched it, then I still suggest you go and do that, and let me know what you you think and if you agree, if it had that same impact on you that it did me. Thank you so much for watching this. If you do have any anime recommendations, I know I mentioned I have a giant list of 800 plus anime that are ranked 7 and above, but if you do have any anime that maybe are ranked a little bit lower than that and you feel like are worth my time, then of course let me know. I'm always looking for new stories. But thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll be back once I finish my next anime. Have a great day, evening, afternoon, whatever time of the day you're watching this, and don't forget to be awesome. All right, goodbye!